How is it going, Bears fans? Welcome back to another episode of Beared Down Uncut, where we talk everything Bears every day of the week. With Ryan Pace returning to Chicago in 2021, can he right his wrong from 2017? Today, we're going to be discussing whether or not the Bears should try and send the haul to Houston to bring in Texans quarterback Deshaun Watson, and whether or not the move makes sense. So let's hop right into it. I am your host, Chris Malpe. Today, I am joined by my slate of co-hosts. To the right of me, video editor and producer here, Zach Rimbos, and below me, my two trusty co-hosts, Parth and Jaylen McClinton. Guys, how's it going?
Doing pretty good. Just recording pretty early. It's 10:45. Pretty early for us usually, but yeah, just getting the grind down.
Yeah, but it allows us to do a double upload today, so we'll go double upload today. But Jaylen, how's it going, man?
It's going good, just like Parth said. You know, we haven't known these early episodes in a very long time. And then this is my last day of class. No class on Monday, so got a 4-day weekend for me, where I pretty much get to enjoy the weekend. But that's about it.
Zach, what's going on, my man?
Got class in about 40 minutes, but we had to talk some Watson. We had to talk some Watson. So
yeah, I'm going to be back in school soon, so things are going to get tough recording. But it does feel good getting up early in the morning and recording. It makes me feel more productive personally. But let's hop right into this. This is really important with Deshaun Watson. There was a lot of rumors about him possibly wanting to leave. He hasn't come out with a public statement or anything saying he wanted to leave. He was hanging out around former Texans receiver Andre Johnson, who told him to stand his ground when it came to the situation. There's a lot of interesting moving parts in Houston. I don't know why. I think it's Easterby is still employed down there. He's one of the main reasons why this team is blown up, as well as Bill O'Brien's passed, and then they bring in the new GM, Caserio. And Watson was promised that he would be involved in the GM and head coach search. And to some extent, he wasn't. The team hasn't been able to reach out to him or contact him. Rumors were saying he wanted Eric Bieniemy, who the Texans finally earlier this week brought in for an interview. So it's going to be interesting to see whether or not he wants to leave. Adam Schefter reported if he did want to leave, which it seems like he somewhat wants to. The only team that he was interested in was the Miami Dolphins, but Max Kellerman on First Take a couple days ago said he could come to Chicago, said he would be in Chicago like no player ever has been in the history of sports with what the Bears are looking for in a quarterback. Also, if he could deliver the Bears a Super Bowl, if he ended up here somehow, that could be incredible. But, obviously it seems like very, very low odds, but we are here to discuss it today. So first and foremost, taking a look at Watson's career, the Bears missed on something in 2017, clearly, not only with Patrick Mahomes, but with Deshaun Watson as well. Even though he's been worse at a win-loss record than Mitchell Trubisky in Chicago, he's clearly quite the talented quarterback. Throughout his career, 14,539 passing yards, 104 touchdowns, only 36 interceptions, and a career passer rating average of 104.5. This year, 33 touchdowns and 7 interceptions with a rating of 112.4, the best of his career thus far. So he's playing some great football. No one really knows what's going to end up happening with him, if he'll stay down in Houston or not, but we thought this video needed to be made. So, Parth, I'm going to start with you. A pretty simple question. Would you like to bring Deshaun Watson to Chicago?
Yeah, that's obvious. He's a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. He does everything the Bears need at the quarterback position. The Bears missed out on him in 2017. It's definitely sucked that happened, but we have a chance to trade for him here. It's a long shot. The Bears might have to give up a lot of picks, maybe players, but if we can make this happen, it seems reasonable. I would pull the deal.
Yeah, I think it's worth it no matter what. And it's funny because me and Zach were talking yesterday after the huge James Harden trade to the Brooklyn Nets, where the Nets got James Harden and gave up 4 first-round picks and 4 first-round swaps and 3 first-round picks. And we were saying that the next massive sports transaction coming out of Houston, it should involve a marquee player coming to the Bears, giving a hint that Deshaun Watson might be going. And man, that would be tough on the city of Houston, but I think it's worth it whatever you give them. We'll talk about it a little bit later, but I absolutely think getting Watson would make the Bears immediate contenders. He's someone who's proven to work decently well with a poor offensive line. I think the Bears' offensive line is going to improve this offseason, but You know, he can get the ball to all his weapons. He's a threat in the running game. And teams have to take accountability for him, unlike they do Mitchell Trubisky at sometimes. So we'll get into what it might cost for Watson a little bit later. But I think it's definitely worth it in any sense, matter, or aspect. I think him coming to Chicago would definitely help this team out a ton. So, Zach, I'm going to pass it to you now. Do you think Watson to Chicago makes sense, and would you want it to happen?
I really want it to happen. Just looking at the Bears past, we've never had a quarterback of that caliber. Even now, even though he was drafted in 2017, he's developed into a great player. He's a really smart guy when it comes to football, as well as, you know, his off the field contributions are also really good too. He helps out the city of Houston a lot. He's a really giving guy. I think, you know, regardless of him losing DeAndre Hopkins and that horrible trade to the Cardinals, he had his number one receiver was Will Fuller, who got suspended the second half of the season. But
Brandon Cook's injured all year.
Yeah. I mean, the people he's lost, David Johnson at running back, you know, they had virtually no running production. It was pretty much exactly what Mitchell Trubisky had, but he had an MVP season practically. You know, other than, you know, him missing his receivers, it's huge as well. And despite that, he still put up an amazing season, league leader in passing yards. You know, the Bears have never had an established quarterback like that, and it would make a huge difference in this franchise.
And Chicago would absolutely love him. But, the league leader in passing, also a career high in touchdowns, a career low in interceptions, and a career high in passer rating. It was quite the year for Watson with the targets he had. And you have to imagine that he would be so much more productive with DeAndre Hopkins, who also had a great year for the Arizona Cardinals. Bill O'Brien really plaguing that organization, not really helping him with the offensive line outside of bringing in Laramie Tunsil. But the weapons were there, and he worked with what he was able to work with, which gives me hope that if Allen Robinson did leave Chicago, that Watson, if he came in, and I still think this is a complete long shot, would be able to work with what the Bears would have next year. So, Jaylen, I want to ask you, we've seen Deshaun Watson go on a tear recently. He's a top 5 quarterback in the league who posted career-high numbers in 2020. Do you think it makes sense for the Bears to try and bring him in?
Do it for them to try to bring him in. It definitely makes sense. You know, we're obviously a quarterback needy team, but I know we're going to talk about, you know, the trade, and I'll talk about more what I'm thinking there. But I definitely think we definitely should look to try to bring him in.
It's going to cost much more than an arm and a leg,
and that's definitely going to affect my answer if I actually want to, you know, trade for him. But I definitely think we should try. You know, especially if we can get from the right price, I wouldn't have a problem with that. He's a very good quarterback. But what we have to give up for him, you know, is definitely, you know, some what's the word I'm looking for? It's really going to be like a negative aspect for me on if we should actually do it. But definitely think we should try to. He's a very good quarterback, and we need one, especially right now. I know Pace and Nagy are definitely going to try to be aggressive at this offseason so they can try to keep their jobs. You know, I highly doubt a rookie quarterback can come in and lead us to a playoff win or even to a playoff appearance so that Nagy and Pace can be safe.
Yeah. And Watson would come in if Pace was going to make any more big trades, because he tends to be overly aggressive in the offseason, and wanted to do anything. It seems like bringing Watson in could really help reverse his poor luck when it comes to drafting in the early rounds, and I think it would help the Bears out a lot. So let's get into the trade terms a little bit now. No one really knows what Houston's asking price is going to be for Watson. No one really knows what they want, but it seems like it's going to be a lot. So I'll go first. I think they either would want 2 first-round picks and a marquee player on defense like an Akeem Hicks, like a Kyle Fuller, or 3 first-round picks straight up. That's a lot no matter what way you push it, and maybe they could even ask for 3 first-round picks and a marquee player as well. That's how good Deshaun Watson is. I personally still think it would be worth it. Surprisingly, you know, the Bears have been a team that throughout the last couple of years really haven't had first-round picks because of the Khalil Mack trade. But I think bringing in Watson would be so worth it for this team, and I think you know, you have to at least make the call and look and see what Houston wants. But that's my early projection. I would probably say 3 first-rounders or 2 and a marquee player. So that's what I'm going to go with. But Parth, I'm going to pass it down to you. What do you think Houston would end up looking for? What would you be willing to trade for Watson?
I've talked about it before. I'd be willing to give up 2 first-rounders. The Bears gave up 2 for the Khalil Mack trade. I'd be down to give up 2, and a player like Akeem Hicks or Kyle Fuller, and package that with maybe a 4th-rounder, and then you get Watson. I think it's a hefty price. At the end of the day, you get yourself a franchise quarterback. The Bears have never had a franchise quarterback, and I think Deshaun Watson, at least brings a lot. At least removes like the quarterback need for the team for a very long time. I think the Bears could be very successful if he's here in Chicago. It definitely would take a couple of years to maybe build up the team again, as we would lose a couple players. But you got to trust the process, and yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, you know what? You absolutely have to trust the process. And I think bringing in Watson would be worth it no matter what that asking price is. But Jaylen, you said you wanted to talk a little bit about what the Bears are giving up. It looks like this offseason, regardless, they're going to have to look to move on from Akeem Hicks or Kyle Fuller, and I'm sure we'll make videos about that in the future for sure. But what do you think Houston's asking price is, and what would you be willing to trade for Deshaun Watson?
I saw a lot of stuff on Twitter that to even get them to pick up the phone, you need to include 3 first-round picks, and I wouldn't do that. Now, if it was 2, which would be this year and next year for Deshaun Watson and probably some other draft picks, I wouldn't have a problem with that. But I can't see us giving up 3 first-round picks. Even if we do get Deshaun Watson and we're still a bad team, Maggie and Pace could easily be fired next year, and we're going to bring in a new GM, a new coach who has no relations to this roster at all, that are probably going to trade
and
people.
Not the greatest draft capital at all.
Yeah, and probably going to trade and cut people, and then we become a bad roster with our first round pick heading to Houston, and that easily could be top 10, where we might be one of the worst teams in the NFL. And so I don't want to do that. We've seen that happen to Houston. They gave up 2 first round picks to the Dolphins, and now the Dolphins, who are just one game out of the playoffs, have the 3rd pick in the NFL draft, and I don't want to end up like that. So that's why I'm kind of weary of actually giving up like that type of assets for him. I know he's worth it. He definitely is, because good quarterbacks are hard to come by, and especially for the Chicago Bears, we haven't had a good quarterback or a very good quarterback in a very long time. We haven't had a Pro Bowl quarterback before Mitchell was back in the 80s. So that goes to show you, or prove to you how hard it is for us to find a very reliable and solid quarterback. But just that action price is just too much for me to give up.
Yeah, and that makes sense. The Bears have been regretting for quite a couple of years not having that first-round pick. And some people say Khalil Mack's play has declined. I partially think it was due to Chuck Pagano, and I'm sure we'll talk about that a lot more in the future. But Khalil Mack is still a beast. And the Bears also got Jaylen Johnson out of that trade, in case you guys don't know that. But, Zach, I'm getting a little off topic. What do you think Houston's asking for Watson this offseason if he wants to get traded?
Yeah, I honestly think it's going to be one of the biggest trades in NFL history. And in the NFL, you don't see really big or huge trades. I mean, one of the biggest,
definitely being one of them.
That was definitely one of them, and that was and when you do trades like that, especially in the NFL, they set you back for some years. And I mean that goes with any league as well. But Ryan Pace, I'm sure he wants to kind of redeem himself here. I don't think he is gonna. I think he's too in his head to want to admit that he messed up and try and get Deshaun. That's my personal opinion. I think that he doesn't even try and shoot for it just because he knows he messed up, but he doesn't want to admit it. I think he's going to try and pull some quarterback in the draft or in free agency, a veteran quarterback, and maybe try and do something with Foles. But I personally, for Deshaun Watson, I think you'd have to be giving up a ton. Khalil Mack, obviously, we gave up a lot, and that was a win now move. And it sadly hasn't. It had worked out because Khalil's a beast, like you said. He's been playing through injury as well. But if you're going to make these win now decisions, you really have to think about what the cost of the future of the Chicago Bears could be as well. And so that's something that I'm sure Pace has in the back of his head. Yeah,
and it's something that could put the Bears in the purgatory for a while if they still don't play well, and Pace and Nagy are gone, and an ex-GM and head coach don't have picks for quite some time. But you talk about the future Chicago Bears and thinking that Deshaun Watson comes in. I'm one to believe that he would immediately make the Bears playoff contenders as early as 2021, regardless of whether Allen Robinson or some important pieces come back, because You would hope the Bears still invest in the offensive line. David Montgomery, the run game was looking very strong throughout the end of 2020. So I think that Deshaun Watson makes the Bears immediate contenders if they can bring him in, no matter what the cost is. Once again, I'll repeat myself for the third time now. I think the odds of this happening is really a long shot. I think the Bears probably end up just drafting someone in the NFL draft and breeding him under Foles for a little bit in training camp and hopefully having him ready for week 1 in the 2021 season. But, Parth, I want to swing it back around to you. If the Bears did bring in Watson, do you think that would immediately make them playoff contenders?
Yeah, I'm gonna say sure. I think the NFC is much weaker than the AFC, so that definitely helps out Deshaun Watson. He had an incredible year, but his team still went 4-12 this year. That's going to take into account.
Look at how great the Colts and the Titans are looking there in the
exactly.
AFC South, and then Jacksonville's going to get Trevor Lawrence and Urban Meyer and see what they can do.
So that division is really stacked. So they're probably thinking to if they're thinking to move on from Watson and Watson comes to the NFC and if he comes to the Bears, I think it gives us a good chance to definitely beat Green Bay here and there. But also I think we could also pick up the wild card pretty easily here in the NFC as well.
Yeah, I think overall it puts the Bears in a position to win, and it's crazy looking at that AFC South now because when we were growing up, it was probably one of the worst divisions in the league when we started watching football. The Colts obviously had Peyton Manning, Andrew Luck, and they were really running that there for a couple of years, and then Matt Schaub was down in Houston. But the Titans and the Jaguars normally was like the toilet bowl of the NFL. But I do think if they traded him to the NFC, the Bears are a team that would definitely pick up the phone and at least make the call. Zach, I know you talked about Ryan Pace's dignity and his ego and his ability to say no in the earlier on. But I think this is a winning league, and I think the McCaskies and Ryan Pace realized that the quarterback has obviously been an issue. We've heard it in years past, and Watson would immediately end that narrative that we need to fix the quarterback position, and I think he would make the Bears contenders. So, Jaylen, I'm going to pass it down to you. If the Bears did bring in Watson, obviously the price would be high, as you mentioned, maybe too much, but do you think he would make the Bears contenders?
Oh, I definitely think he can make the Bears contenders. We were in the playoffs with Nick Foles, who started 7 games of the season, and then Mitchell Trubisky when he finally was our starter again for 9. So I definitely feel like we could be playoff contenders. I'm not going to go so far as to say we're Super Bowl contenders. I just don't feel like this roster is at that point right now, especially with all the injuries we were having, people getting up there in age and just not having the right personnel. But I definitely feel like Deshaun Watson can make us a playoff contender. But I don't understand how you have that type of good of a season and still go 4-12. I know it's the NFL team is just not all based on the quarterback, but when you have a very good quarterback, that usually you can make the team around you better. So, but I definitely think with the receivers we have right now, even if we do lose Allen Robinson, we could draft one with whatever draft picks we have left and bring in some guys that we can. Deshaun Watson can definitely make us.
You could probably also recoup a pick because I feel like if Robinson goes personally, you don't let him walk. Worst case scenario, I feel like you tag and trade him and get a second, third round pick for him, which could turn into another good player. I mean, we saw Justin Jefferson come out of the early second round this year and was able.
He was drafted in the first round.
Oh, excuse me. Why was I thinking he was picked in the same round as Jalen Johnson? Anyways, there were some good second-round wide receivers, Michael Pittman being one of them, and you can still get quality pieces in the second round. But I'm getting off topic once again, and I just messed up. But, Zach, if the Bears did bring in Watson, do you think this would make them immediate contenders?
Yeah, Jaylen said it best. We would definitely be playoff contenders, but I don't think we'd be Super Bowl contenders. Excuse me. The other problem with that is like I was saying, when you trade for someone like that, you do set yourself back a few years. And even though a quarterback, like Jaylen said, is easy to, if you have a good quarterback, it's easy to build around a quarterback. But the problem is you don't have the picks then to do so. When you're trying to draft for talent, first round is where it's at. Obviously you see people like Chase Claypool was at our pick for Jalen Johnson. He was still there. Like you said, Michael Pittman was
That's who I meant to mention earlier.
Yeah.
Chase Claypool.
Michael Pittman, Chase Claypool were there. Or not for us, but I mean Pittman wasn't there for us, but Claypool was. Point being, when you try and find receiver, if you're trying to win a Super Bowl, you need a lot more pieces. And that's not saying anything bad about Deshaun Watson. He's obviously a top 5 quarterback, but he just needs more pieces. And if you trade for him, you're not going to be able to get all those pieces. And especially with the salary cap, you'd have to look out for that as well. And we have some players who are likely going to be moving on from the Chicago Bears. You got Akeem Hicks, you got Kyle Fuller. You can't just bring in whoever you want, obviously. So.
Yeah, it's a money game regardless, but I am hopeful that if the Bears brought in Deshaun Watson, that Allen Robinson would definitely want to stay. That would be easily the best quarterback he'll ever play with in his time so far in the career, the best quarterback that he'd get the chance to play with. So that's another benefit of bringing him in, is that Allen Robinson hopefully would stick around. But that's pretty much it for episode number 116 of Uncut. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you want more off-season content, head over to our website, beareddown.com. We're posting columns, articles, and blogs, talking a lot of off-season, NFL draft, free agency, these firings, possibly new defensive coordinator role. So be sure to head over to our website to check that all out. If you would like to find the podcast on social media, we're at Beared Down on Instagram and Twitter. You can see sneak peeks of what we're going to post, give us some insight on what you guys want to see. And obviously, we also do monthly giveaways, so be sure to head over to our website to check that out. And finally, you can find the links to all of our social media down in the description. All four of us on the screen, our Instagram and Twitter pages is definitely worth checking out. It's a great way to interact with us and to see our thoughts on all professional sports and the rest of the National Football League. Parth Shaw, Jaylen McClinton, Zach Rimbos back at the grind once again, but it does feel good. It seems like the fans are pretty receptive to the Uncut series, and we're going to keep it coming. Any last words before we close this one out?
Yeah, the Uncut series, we've been doing it for almost 6-7 months now. It's been an ongoing series. It's been fun. But yeah, hopefully the Bears can find a quarterback this offseason. It's definitely a need. And Deshaun Watson would probably be the best option, so would not mind that at all. So,
Bear down. I don't have much to say. Enjoy your weekend, I guess.
Yeah, it'd be interesting if we made that move. The schedule next year would look a little bit easier for us. Not much easier, but still easier than what it would be with our situation right now. But yeah, other than that, man, bear down.
Yeah, the Bears' schedule next year is looking pretty tough. A lot of under-the-radar teams that could be better. A lot of already pretty good teams are going to be there. So it's going to be a make-it-or-break-it year for the Bears. It could be a really good year depending on what they do this offseason, and it could be a really bad year, and we could see a lot of changes heading towards 2022 if it goes raw. So it's going to be make-it-or-break-it for Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy. So we'll see if they make any big moves to try and re-up this team in what I would call this offseason kind of being like a soft reboot. But we're going to keep the offseason coverage coming for you guys here. If you made it this far in the video, do us a favor. Drop a like and subscribe if you're new and want Bears content every day of the week. It's been a pleasure to be your host, guys. Once again, my name is Chris Maltby. Bears fans, as always, do us a favor and stay safe and bear down. We'll be back later tonight with Uncut 117, and that's pretty much it for us, guys.